The dust on Main Street was so thick that Olivia Trent could taste it with every labored breath, her worn boots dragging through the rutted road as the September sun beat down on Concordia, Kansas in 1882. Her stomach cramped with a hunger she had known for 3 weeks now. Ever since the stagecoach company she worked for as a cook went bankrupt and left her stranded in this railroad town with nothing but the threadbare dress on her back and the shame of a body that society deemed unacceptable. She was a large woman, always had been, and the judgmental stares of townsfolk cut deeper than any knife as she passed the general store, the saloon, the land office, all filled with people who looked right through her as though she were invisible. Olivia stopped in front of the Silver Spur Saloon, her hand trembling as she pushed open the batwing doors and stepped into the dimness. The piano player stopped mid-tune, and every head in the establishment turned to look at her. She felt her cheeks burn but lifted her chin, refusing to let them see how their scrutiny wounded her. "I am looking for work," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "I can cook, clean, do laundry, anything honest. I will work for food." The bartender, a thin man with a waxed mustache, laughed. "We got no need for the likes of you here. Move along." Olivia felt the familiar sting of rejection, but before she could turn away, a voice rang out from the corner of the saloon, deep and steady. "She will eat at my table as my equal." Every eye shifted to the man who stood from his chair, his spurs jingling softly as he crossed the wooden floor. He was tall, with broad shoulders that filled out his dusty work shirt, and a face weathered by sun and wind. His eyes were a startling blue, the color of the Kansas sky on a clear day, and they held none of the mockery she had grown accustomed to seeing. "Nathan Kerrigan," the bartender said with obvious surprise. "You sure about that?" I said what I said, Dutch. Nathan stopped in front of Olivia, and she realized he was even taller up close, well over 6 feet. "I run a cattle ranch about 10 miles west of here. I need help with the cooking and managing the house. My last housekeeper married and moved to Denver 3 months back, and I have been making do with burned beans and stale bread ever since. If you are willing to work, I am willing to pay fair wages, provide room and board, and treat you with the respect any honest worker deserves." Olivia stared at him, searching his face for the trick, the cruelty that usually followed such offers, but his expression remained open, honest. "You do not even know if I can cook." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Can you do better than burned beans?" Despite everything, Olivia felt an answering smile. "I can make a pot roast that will make you forget your own name, biscuits so light they practically float off the plate, and an apple pie that has won ribbons at county fairs." "Then you are hired, Miss Trent. Olivia Trent, Miss Trent." He tipped his hat to her, a gesture so courteous it made her throat tight. "I have some business to finish here in town. There is a restaurant 2 doors down called Martha's. Go there, order whatever you want, and tell Martha to put it on my account. I will collect you in an hour and we will head to the ranch." Olivia hesitated. "I do not take charity, Mr. Kerrigan." "It is not charity. It is an advance on your wages. You cannot work on an empty stomach, and I need you strong enough to handle the job." His tone was matter-of-fact, businesslike, stripping away any suggestion of pity. She nodded slowly. 1 hour, then. Olivia left the saloon with as much dignity as she could muster, aware of the whispers that followed her departure. She found Martha's restaurant easily, a small establishment with gingham curtains in the windows and the smell of fresh bread wafting into the street. Inside, a plump woman with kind eyes and graying hair greeted her. "What can I get you, dear?" Olivia repeated Nathan's instructions, half expecting the woman to laugh her out of the restaurant. Instead, Martha nodded and smiled. Nathan Kerrigan is a good man, one of the best. You sit yourself down and I will bring you a proper meal. The food that arrived was simple but plentiful. Roast chicken with potatoes and carrots, fresh bread with butter, green beans, and a slice of peach pie that made Olivia want to weep. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, trying not to think about how long it had been since she had tasted anything beyond stale crackers and creek water. Martha refilled her coffee twice and never once looked at her with anything but warmth. When Nathan arrived exactly an hour later, Olivia was ready. He led her to a sturdy wagon hitched to two bay horses, offering his hand to help her up. His grip was strong and steady, and he did not grunt or strain at her weight the way men usually did, making a show of their effort. The ride west took them away from the town and into the rolling prairie that stretched endlessly in all directions. The late afternoon sun turned the grasslands golden, and a cool breeze carried the scent of wild sage. Nathan was quiet for the first few miles, his attention on the horses and the rutted trail, but Olivia felt the questions building in her mind. "Why did you help me?" she finally asked. "You do not know anything about me." Nathan glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. "My mother was a large woman. She was also the strongest, most capable person I ever knew. She ran our farm almost single-handedly after my father died when I was 12, and she did it with grace and dignity despite the way people talked about her. When she passed 5 years ago, I made a promise to myself that I would never judge a person by their appearance, only by their character and their work." The honesty in his words struck something deep in Olivia's chest. "I am sorry about your mother. Thank you. She would have liked you, I think." She always appreciated people who spoke their mind and did not put on airs. They rode in companionable silence after that, and Olivia allowed herself to relax slightly, to take in the beauty of the landscape and the possibility that maybe, just maybe, her luck had finally turned. The Kerrigan ranch appeared as the sun began to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It was a substantial spread, with a 2-story house built of whitewashed wood, a large barn, several corrals, and various outbuildings. Cattle grazed in distant pastures, and Olivia could see 3 men working near the barn, their voices carrying on the evening air. Nathan pulled the wagon up to the house and jumped down, coming around to help Olivia descend. "The hands bunk in the building behind the barn," he explained. "They are good men, honest workers. I will introduce you at supper. The house has 4 bedrooms upstairs. Mine is at the far end. You can have your pick of the other 3. There is a washroom on the first floor with a pump, and an outhouse about 50 yards behind the house, though I am planning to install indoor plumbing next year." He led her inside, and Olivia caught her breath at the sight. The house was well built and spacious, with a large kitchen that boasted a modern cast iron stove, a deep sink, and plenty of counter space. The main room had comfortable furniture, braided rugs on the floor, and a stone fireplace. It was clean but had the unmistakable air of a place that lacked a woman's touch, with dust on the windowsills and a general sense of disorder. "I know it needs work," Nathan said, sounding almost apologetic. "I have been focusing on the ranch and letting the house go. Your room will be your private space. I will not enter without permission, and I expect the same courtesy. Meals are at sunrise, noon, and sunset. The hands will eat in the bunkhouse, but I usually take my meals here in the kitchen. You are welcome to eat with me or separately, whichever you prefer." Olivia set down the small bundle that contained her few possessions. "I will eat with you if that is acceptable. You said as your equal, and equals share a table." Nathan's smile was warm and genuine. "That they do, Miss Trent. Olivia, please." If we are to be housemates, we might as well use given names. Olivia it is, and you should call me Nathan. He glanced at the kitchen. I know you must be tired, but would you mind terribly if we had a simple supper tonight? I can show you where everything is, and tomorrow you can start properly. I am not too tired to cook a decent meal, Olivia said firmly. You hired me to do a job, and I intend to earn my keep. Now, show me your pantry and let me see what I have to work with. The pantry was surprisingly well stocked with basics: flour, sugar, coffee, dried beans, salt pork, and various canned goods. There was a root cellar with potatoes, onions, and carrots, and Nathan mentioned that there was a smokehouse with beef and pork. Olivia assessed her options and decided on a hearty beef stew with biscuits, something that could simmer while she familiarized herself with the kitchen. Nathan watched her work for a few minutes, his expression unreadable, before he excused himself to tend to the horses and check in with his ranch hands. Alone in the kitchen, Olivia allowed herself a moment to simply breathe, to absorb the reality of her situation. She had a job, a roof over her head, and an employer who treated her with dignity. It felt almost too good to be true, and she forced herself to focus on the cooking to keep the emotions at bay. By the time Nathan returned, the kitchen smelled of savory stew and fresh biscuits. He washed up at the pump and sat at the table without being asked, his ease in the domestic space suggesting a man comfortable with himself. Olivia served them both generous portions and sat across from him, her heart beating faster than she wanted to admit. They ate in silence for a few minutes before Nathan set down his spoon and looked at her directly. This is the best meal I have had in months, maybe years. Olivia felt a flush of pleasure at the praise. Thank you. It is nothing fancy, but I learned young that good food does not have to be complicated. Where did you learn to cook? My mother ran a boarding house in St. Louis. I grew up in the kitchen, helping her feed dozens of people every day. She taught me that food is more than sustenance. It is comfort, community, love made tangible. Olivia paused, surprised at her own candor. She passed when I was 19. I have been working as a cook ever since, moving from place to place as jobs came and went. What brought you to Kansas? A stagecoach company hired me to cook for their main station in Abilene. When they went under, I tried to make my way to Denver, but I ran out of money in Concordia. She met his eyes steadily. I am not going to pretend that the past few weeks have not been hard. I am sure you noticed that I was desperate when I walked into that saloon. Desperate maybe, but not broken. There is a difference. Nathan sopped up stew with a piece of biscuit. I respect that you are honest about your situation. I will be honest with you in return. This ranch is my life's work. I started with nothing but a piece of land and a dream, and I have built it into something successful through hard work and determination. I need help keeping the house and feeding the men, but more than that, I need someone I can trust, someone who will treat this place with respect. If you are that person, then we will get along fine. I am that person, Olivia said quietly. I do not have much, Nathan, but I have my integrity and my work ethic. I will not let you down. I believe you. He stood and carried his empty bowl to the sink. I will let you settle in tonight. Tomorrow I will introduce you to the hands and show you around the property. If you need anything, my room is at the end of the hall upstairs. Do not hesitate to knock. After Nathan went upstairs, Olivia cleaned the kitchen thoroughly, learning the layout and organization as she worked. The physical labor felt good after weeks of uncertainty, grounding her in the present moment. When everything was spotless, she climbed the stairs and chose the bedroom closest to the staircase, a sunny room with a window overlooking the front yard and a simple bed with a quilt that looked handmade. That night, in a real bed for the first time in weeks, Olivia cried. She cried for the humiliation she had endured, for the kindness Nathan had shown her, for the overwhelming relief of having a safe place to rest. And when the tears finally stopped, she made herself a promise. She would work harder than she had ever worked, prove herself indispensable, and build a life here that she could be proud of. The next morning, Olivia woke before dawn, a habit ingrained from years of cooking for early rising workers. She dressed in her only other outfit, a plain brown skirt and cream blouse, and went downstairs to fire up the stove. By the time Nathan appeared, she had coffee brewing and was mixing batter for pancakes. "You did not have to start so early," he said, though his eyes lit up at the smell of coffee. "I am an early riser by nature. Besides, you said the hands eat at sunrise. I assume that means they will be here soon expecting food." Nathan poured himself coffee and leaned against the counter. "Actually, they eat in the bunkhouse. One of them, usually whoever loses at cards the night before, handles breakfast. I should have been clearer about that. You are only responsible for cooking for the two of us, though if you want to take over all the meals, I would pay you extra." Olivia considered this as she flipped pancakes onto a plate. "Let me get settled first, learn the rhythms of the place. Then we can discuss expanding my duties." They ate breakfast together as the sun rose, painting the kitchen in golden light. Nathan told her about the ranch, how he ran a herd of about 500 cattle, employed 4 full-time hands and additional help during roundup and branding season. He explained the seasonal rhythms, the challenges of drought and disease, the satisfaction of seeing his herd thrive. After breakfast, Nathan took her on a tour of the property. He introduced her to the ranch hands. Jack, a weathered cowboy in his 50s who had been with Nathan from the beginning. Pete and Sam, brothers in their 30s who could rope and ride better than anyone Nathan had ever seen. And Tom, a young man barely 20 who was learning the trade. All of them greeted Olivia with respect, tipping their hats and welcoming her to the ranch. If any of them had opinions about her size, they kept them to themselves. Over the following weeks, Olivia settled into a routine that felt both foreign and deeply right. She woke early, made breakfast for herself and Nathan, then spent the mornings baking bread, preparing the noon meal, and tackling the endless cleaning that a house required. Afternoons were for laundry, mending, and starting supper preparations. Evenings, after the dishes were done, she would sit in the main room with a book from Nathan's modest library while he worked on ranch accounts or mended tack. They developed an easy companionship, comfortable with silence, but also given to long conversations about everything from politics to philosophy to the best way to make cornbread. Olivia learned that Nathan was 32, had never been married, and devoted most of his energy to building his ranch into something sustainable. He learned that she was 28, had a sharp wit and sharper mind, and could discuss literature and current events with an education that belied her working-class background. What surprised Olivia most was how safe she felt. Nathan never looked at her with disgust or pity, never made comments about her size or her eating habits, never treated her as anything less than a valued member of his household. When she struggled to reach something on a high shelf, he helped without making her feel inadequate. When she needed supplies from town, he took her in the wagon and never rushed her or acted embarrassed to be seen with her. As October arrived and the weather began to cool, Olivia realized something that both thrilled and terrified her. She was developing feelings for Nathan Kerrigan. It was there in the way her heart lifted when she heard his footsteps on the porch, in how she found herself making his favorite foods and watching his face as he ate them, in the warmth that spread through her chest when he smiled at her across the dinner table. She tried to dismiss it as gratitude, as the natural result of his kindness, but she knew better. This was deeper, more dangerous. She was falling in love with her employer, a man who had shown her nothing but respect and friendship, but had given no indication that he saw her as anything more than his housekeeper. Nathan, for his part, was fighting his own battle. He had hired Olivia expecting a good cook and competent housekeeper. What he had not expected was to find himself drawn to her in ways that went far beyond the professional. He loved her quick laugh, the way she hummed while she worked, her fierce intelligence and her refusal to be diminished by the world's cruelty. He loved watching her move through his kitchen with confidence, transforming simple ingredients into meals that felt like coming home. But more than anything, he loved the way she made him feel. For years, Nathan had poured all his energy into the ranch, telling himself that success in business was enough. Olivia made him question that. She made him want things he had long denied himself: companionship, intimacy, a true partnership that went beyond shared work. The problem was that he had promised to treat her as an equal, to provide a safe place to work, and he feared that revealing his feelings would make her feel trapped or obligated. The tension between them built slowly, in glances that lasted too long, in hands that brushed accidentally and lingered, in conversations that grew more personal and more charged. Neither spoke of it, both too afraid of disrupting the fragile balance they had created. The breaking point came in late October, on a day that started like any other. Nathan had ridden out early to check on the cattle in the southern pasture, leaving Olivia alone in the house. She decided to tackle the neglected flower beds around the front porch, pulling weeds and clearing away dead plants. The physical labor felt good, and she lost herself in the rhythm of the work. She did not hear the riders approach until they were already dismounting in front of the house. 3 men, rough-looking and unfamiliar, with guns on their hips and mean smiles on their faces. Olivia stood slowly, her heart beginning to race. "Well, well," the tallest one said, looking her up and down with undisguised contempt. "What do we have here? Kerrigan finally get himself a woman. Must be desperate if he is settling for the likes of you." Olivia lifted her chin, refusing to show fear. "This is private property. State your business or leave." The man laughed, a harsh sound that made her skin crawl. "Our business is with Kerrigan. We heard he has a nice herd, might be willing to sell some cattle. Though if he is not here, maybe we will just look around ourselves." "You will do no such thing. Mr. Kerrigan is not here, and I suggest you come back another time after sending word ahead." The second man, shorter but broader, stepped closer. "You suggesting we leave without even a drink of water? That is not very hospitable. Maybe we should teach you some manners." Olivia's hand moved to the pocket of her apron, where she kept a small paring knife for gardening. It was barely a weapon, but it was something. "I am suggesting that you leave now, before you do something you will regret." The tall man's expression darkened. "You threatening us, fat woman? You think you can? I think you should listen to the lady." Nathan's voice cut through the tension like a blade. He sat atop his horse at the edge of the yard, his rifle resting casually across his saddle but his eyes hard as flint. Behind him, Jack and Pete had emerged from the barn, also armed. The tall man's bravado faltered. "We were just asking about cattle, Kerrigan. No need for trouble. You were threatening my housekeeper on my property. That is trouble in my book." Nathan dismounted slowly, keeping the rifle trained on the men. "I know who you are. You are part of the Dalton gang, rustlers and thieves. You are not here to buy cattle. You are here to scout for a raid. Now you have 2 choices. You can ride out of here now and never come back, or we can see how fast you draw compared to how fast I shoot." The tension stretched taut as a wire. Olivia held her breath, her hand still on the knife. Finally, the tall man spat into the dirt and turned to his horse. "This is not over, Kerrigan." "Yes, it is. If I see any of you within 10 miles of my property again, I will not bother with warnings." Nathan's voice was flat, final. The three men mounted and rode off at a gallop, leaving dust and tension in their wake. Nathan waited until they were out of sight before lowering his rifle and turning to Olivia. "Are you all right? Did they hurt you?" Olivia shook her head, suddenly aware that she was trembling. "I am fine. They were just trying to scare me." Nathan crossed to her in 3 long strides, his hands coming up to grip her shoulders gently. "You were incredibly brave. But damn it, Olivia, you could have been hurt if I had not come back when I did. But you did." She looked up at him, seeing fear and fury and something else in his eyes, something that made her breath catch. "I am safe, Nathan, thanks to you. I should have been here, I should have." He trailed off, his hands still on her shoulders, his face close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his blue eyes. The space between them seemed to shrink, charged with all the things they had not said. Olivia knew she should step back, should maintain the professional distance they had carefully preserved. Instead, she found herself swaying forward, drawn by a force she could no longer resist. Nathan's hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing across her skin with devastating gentleness. "Olivia, He stopped, struggling with words. "I need you to know that you can tell me if this is not what you want. I do not want you to feel pressured or obligated in any way." "What is this?" she whispered, her heart hammering against her ribs. "This is me trying to tell you that you have become far more important to me than just my housekeeper. This is me trying to find the courage to say that I think about you every moment of every day, that your smile is the best part of my morning and your laughter is the sweetest sound I have ever heard. This is me being terrified that I am about to ruin the best thing that has happened to me in years." Olivia felt tears prick at her eyes. "You are not ruining anything. I feel the same way, Nathan. I have for weeks now. I just never thought. I never imagined that you could see me that way." His expression shifted to something fierce and tender at once. "How could I not? You are brilliant and brave and beautiful. You light up every room you enter. You have made this house a home, made me remember what it feels like to have something to look forward to beyond work." "I am not beautiful," Olivia said, old wounds making her voice sharp. "I am fat, Nathan. I know what I look like. I know what people say." "You are beautiful to me," Nathan said firmly. "And anyone who cannot see that is a fool. Your size does not define you, Olivia. Your kindness does, your strength, your brilliant mind and generous heart. Those are the things I see when I look at you." The tears spilled over then, and Nathan pulled her into his arms, holding her as she cried against his chest. He was solid and warm, and his hand stroked her back with infinite patience. When she finally pulled away, embarrassed by her emotional display, he used his thumbs to wipe the tears from her cheeks. "I am sorry," she managed. "I do not usually fall apart like this. You have nothing to apologize for. You were threatened and you are processing that. But Olivia, I need to know. Is this something you want? A relationship with me that goes beyond employer and employee?" She looked up at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes, the fear that mirrored her own. "Yes, I want that more than I can say, but Nathan, we need to be practical. What will people say? What will your ranch hands think? I do not give a damn what people say, and my ranch hands will treat you with respect or find employment elsewhere." His voice was firm. "But I understand your concerns. We can take this slowly, figure it out as we go. There is no rush." Olivia nodded, feeling a smile break through the tears. "Slowly sounds good." Nathan's answering smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. Then, moving with careful deliberation, he lowered his head and kissed her. It was gentle and sweet, a question and an answer all at once. Olivia's hands came up to grip his shirt, steadying herself as the world seemed to tilt on its axis. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Nathan rested his forehead against hers, his hands still framing her face. "I have wanted to do that for weeks," he admitted. "I wish you had done it sooner," Olivia said, then laughed at her own boldness. They stood there for a long moment, wrapped in each other's arms while the October sun warmed their backs and the prairie wind whispered through the grass. Finally, Nathan pulled back, his practical nature reasserting itself. "I need to ride to town and report those men to the sheriff. I do not think they will be back, but I want it on record in case they try something. Will you be all right here? I can have Jack stay close to the house." "I will be fine," Olivia assured him. "But be careful, please." Nathan kissed her forehead. "Always." He rode to Concordia with Jack, leaving Pete and Sam at the ranch with instructions to keep watch. Olivia went back inside, her mind reeling from everything that had happened. She busied herself with supper preparations, needing the familiar rhythms to process the massive shift in her life. Nathan returned as the sun was setting, reporting that the sheriff would keep an eye out for the Dalton gang members. Over supper, they talked about what their new relationship would look like. Nathan insisted that Olivia's position at the ranch was secure regardless of their romantic involvement, that he would continue to pay her wages and respect her independence. Olivia appreciated his thoughtfulness, but also made clear that she was not a fragile thing to be coddled, that she expected honesty and partnership. As the days passed and October gave way to November, Olivia and Nathan navigated their new dynamic with a mixture of excitement and caution. They were still learning each other, discovering the contours of a relationship that was both familiar and entirely new. Nathan courted her properly, bringing her small gifts from town: a book of poetry, a length of pretty fabric, a carved wooden box for her keepsakes. Olivia showed her affection through her cooking, through the care she took with his home, through the way she listened to his concerns and offered thoughtful advice. The physical side of their relationship progressed slowly, with kisses stolen in the kitchen and embraces on the front porch after supper. Nathan was patient and respectful, always checking in to make sure Olivia was comfortable. For Olivia, who had never been courted before, who had never had a man look at her with desire and tenderness, it was overwhelming in the best way. The ranch hands noticed the change, of course, but if they had opinions, they kept them quiet. Jack, the oldest and most observant, simply told Nathan one evening that he thought Olivia was good for him, that the boss seemed happier than he had in years. That quiet approval meant more to Nathan than he could express. As November progressed and the weather turned colder, Nathan began making plans for the winter. The cattle would need to be moved to pastures closer to the ranch buildings, and there would be endless work repairing fences and equipment. But he also found himself thinking about the future in ways he never had before, imagining holidays spent with Olivia, quiet evenings by the fire, a life that was full and rich beyond just work. Thanksgiving arrived, and Olivia insisted on cooking a proper feast. She roasted 2 chickens, made cornbread dressing, mashed potatoes, gravy, green beans, cranberry sauce, and 3 different pies. Nathan invited the ranch hands to join them in the house, and they crowded around the big table, filling the room with laughter and conversation. Watching Olivia move through the kitchen, her face flushed with happiness as she served food and accepted compliments, Nathan felt his heart swell with emotion so intense it was almost painful. After the hands had returned to the bunkhouse and the dishes were done, Nathan and Olivia sat by the fire in the main room. She was tucked against his side, his arm around her shoulders, both of them comfortable and content. "Thank you for today," Nathan said quietly. "For the meal, for making this feel like a real home, for everything." Olivia tilted her head to look up at him. "You do not need to thank me. I loved every minute of it. This is the first Thanksgiving I have had that felt like a real family celebration since my mother died." Nathan tightened his arm around her. "I want to give you that, Olivia. Family, celebration, a sense of belonging. I want to build a life with you." She heard the seriousness in his tone and shifted to face him more fully. "Nathan." "I know it is early," he said, the words tumbling out now that he had started. "I know we have only been together for a few weeks, but I am 32 years old and I have never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. I wake up grateful that you are here, and I go to sleep looking forward to seeing you the next morning. You challenge me and comfort me and make me want to be better than I am. I love you, Olivia. I am in love with you." Olivia felt tears spill down her cheeks for the second time since she had known this man. "I love you too, so much that it scares me sometimes. I keep waiting for something to go wrong, for you to realize you made a mistake." Nathan cupped her face in his hands, his expression fierce. "I did not make a mistake. You are the best decision I ever made, and I want to prove that to you every day for the rest of our lives if you will let me." They kissed then, deep and passionate, a seal on the promises they were making. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Nathan pulled a small box from his pocket. "I was going to wait until Christmas, but I cannot, not when I know what I want." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold band with a small diamond. "It was my mother's. She would want you to have it. Olivia Trent, will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my equal in all things?" Olivia stared at the ring, then at Nathan's face, seeing nothing but love and hope and certainty. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, as though it had been made for her. They held each other for a long time, letting the magnitude of the moment sink in, letting themselves feel the joy without reservation. The next day, they rode to town together to share the news and make arrangements. The local minister agreed to perform the ceremony in 3 weeks, giving them time to prepare but not so long that the waiting would be torture. Nathan visited the general store and ordered supplies for improving the house, determined to make it perfect for Olivia. Olivia visited Martha's restaurant and was embraced by the older woman who had become something of a friend. "I knew it," Martha said, beaming. "I knew that first day when Nathan brought you here that something special was happening. You two are perfect for each other." Not everyone in Concordia was as supportive. There were whispers and judgmental looks, people who could not understand why a successful rancher would marry a woman of Olivia's size and station. But Nathan and Olivia were largely insulated from the gossip by the distance of the ranch and the strength of their certainty. What other people thought simply did not matter when they had each other. The 3 weeks before the wedding passed in a blur of preparation. Olivia sewed herself a new dress, a deep blue silk that Nathan had insisted on buying for her, with lace at the collar and cuffs. Nathan worked with the hands to finish the seasonal preparations, wanting everything secure before he took a few days away from ranch work to focus on his new wife. They spent their evenings making plans, talking about everything from how they would manage household finances to how many children they wanted. The wedding took place on a crisp December morning, with fresh snow on the ground and a brilliant blue sky overhead. The ceremony was small and intimate, held in the town's little church with Jack, Pete, Sam, Tom, and Martha in attendance. Olivia wore her blue dress and carried a simple bouquet of dried wildflowers. Nathan wore his best suit and could not take his eyes off his bride. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan kissed Olivia with a tenderness that made Martha dab at her eyes with her handkerchief. Afterward, they returned to the ranch for a celebratory meal that Olivia and Martha had prepared together the day before. The ranch hands toasted the couple with whiskey, and Jack made a short speech about how glad he was to see the boss finally settling down with someone worthy of him. As evening fell and the guests departed, Nathan and Olivia found themselves alone in the house that was now truly their home. There was a nervousness between them, the awareness that this night would be different from all the ones before. Nathan had moved his things into the largest bedroom, the one that would now be theirs to share, and a fire burned cheerfully in the small fireplace. "I want you to know," Nathan said as they stood together in the bedroom, "that we can take things as slowly as you need. There is no rush, we have the rest of our lives." Olivia turned to face him, her hands coming up to rest on his chest. "I appreciate that, but Nathan, I am not afraid. I trust you completely. I want us, want everything that comes with being your wife." He kissed her then, slowly and deeply, and they undressed each other with gentle hands and whispered words of love. Nathan was patient and attentive, making sure Olivia felt cherished and desired. For Olivia, who had spent so much of her life feeling unwanted and unseen, the experience of being touched with such reverence was almost overwhelming. They made love with the slow deliberation of people learning each other's rhythms, and afterward, they lay wrapped in each other's arms, both feeling more complete than they had ever felt before. Winter settled over the ranch with snow and cold winds, but inside the house, there was only warmth and contentment. Olivia and Nathan fell into the rhythms of married life with an ease that felt natural. They worked together during the day, Nathan handling the outdoor work while Olivia managed the house, and they came together in the evenings to share meals and conversation, and the quiet intimacy of a couple deeply in love. As Christmas approached, Olivia threw herself into preparations, determined to make the holiday special. She baked for days, filling the house with the scents of gingerbread and cinnamon. She sewed gifts for Nathan and the ranch hands, practical things like shirts and socks but made with care. Nathan surprised her on Christmas morning with a beautiful rocking chair he had made himself, the wood smooth and perfectly finished. "For when we have children," he said, his hand resting on her belly in a gesture of hope and promise, "so you can rock them to sleep." Olivia felt her throat tighten with emotion. "It is perfect. Everything is perfect." They spent Christmas Day quietly, just the two of them, and as they sat by the fire that evening, Olivia reflected on how dramatically her life had changed in just 4 months. She had gone from desperate and starving to loved and secure, from invisible to cherished. It felt like a miracle. January and February brought the hardest part of winter, with blizzards that kept everyone close to the house and temperatures that made even short trips to the barn a trial. But Nathan and Olivia weathered it together, finding joy in the forced intimacy of being snowed in. They played cards, read to each other, and talked for hours about everything and nothing. It was during one of those long winter nights that Olivia realized she had missed her monthly courses. At first, she dismissed it as stress or the change in seasons, but as the weeks passed and other signs appeared, tender breasts, morning queasiness, and overwhelming fatigue, she began to suspect the truth. She waited until she was certain before telling Nathan, afraid to give him false hope. When she finally spoke the words one evening in late February as they prepared for bed, Nathan's face transformed with a joy so pure it took her breath away. "Are you sure?" he asked, his hand going immediately to her belly. "As sure as I can be without seeing a doctor. I think I am about 6 weeks along, which would mean the baby will come in October." Nathan pulled her into his arms, holding her carefully as though she had suddenly become fragile. "This is the best news I have ever received. We are going to be parents, Olivia. We are going to have a family." "Are you happy?" she asked, needing to hear the words. Happy does not begin to cover it. "I am thrilled, terrified, overwhelmed, and more in love with you than I thought possible." He pulled back to look at her, his eyes shining. "You have given me everything, Olivia. A home, love, and now a child. I do not have words for what that means to me." They told the ranch hands the next day, and the men offered hearty congratulations and promises to help in any way they could. Nathan became even more protective, insisting that Olivia not overwork herself, hiring a woman from town to come out twice a week to help with the heavy cleaning. Olivia appreciated the concern but also had to remind him regularly that she was pregnant, not ill, and that she was perfectly capable of managing her normal duties. As winter gave way to spring, Olivia's belly began to swell with the growing baby. She sewed maternity clothes and baby garments, turning one of the empty bedrooms into a nursery. Nathan worked on expanding the vegetable garden and making improvements to the house, driven by a nesting instinct he had not known he possessed. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, though Olivia dealt with her share of discomforts. Nathan was attentive and supportive, rubbing her aching feet in the evenings and holding her hair when morning sickness struck. They spent hours discussing names and making plans, both excited and nervous about the massive change coming to their lives. In June, Nathan took Olivia to town to see the doctor, who confirmed that both mother and baby were healthy and that delivery was expected in early October. The trip to town also gave them a chance to show off Olivia's growing belly to Martha and the few other people who had been kind to them. The gossip still whispered, but Nathan and Olivia were insulated by their happiness and the solid foundation of their marriage. Summer brought long days and hard work, with the ranch thriving under Nathan's careful management. The cattle were healthy, the grass was abundant, and there were new foals in the pasture. Olivia found joy in the small domestic rhythms, tending her garden and preserving food for the winter, preparing for the arrival of their child. As September arrived, and Olivia grew large and uncomfortable, Nathan became increasingly anxious about the approaching birth. He arranged for the doctor from town to be on call, made sure the midwife knew to come at the first sign of labor, and generally hovered around Olivia like a worried hen. She found his concern endearing if sometimes exasperating. "Women have been having babies since the dawn of time," she reminded him one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. "I am strong, the baby is healthy, and everything will be fine." "I know," Nathan said, though his hand tightened on hers. "I just cannot bear the thought of anything happening to you. You are my whole world, Olivia, and you are mine. But you have to trust that I can do this. Our child needs both of us whole and healthy, not worried sick." Nathan nodded, trying to internalize her calm. "You are right. I am sorry for being overprotective." "I did not say I wanted you to stop completely," Olivia teased. "A little fussing is nice. Just maybe dial it back from frantic to concerned," he laughed, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "I can do that." Labor began on an early October morning, 3 days before Olivia's predicted due date. It started with mild cramps that gradually intensified, and by noon, Olivia knew it was time. Nathan sent Tom riding hard for the midwife and the doctor, while he helped Olivia upstairs and tried to remember all the things he was supposed to do. The labor was long and difficult, lasting through the afternoon and into the evening. Nathan stayed by Olivia's side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her forehead with cool cloths, murmuring words of encouragement and love. The midwife, a capable woman named Mrs. Carson, directed everything with calm efficiency, while the doctor stood ready in case complications arose. As night fell and Olivia's strength began to wane, Nathan felt fear grip him in a way it never had before. But Olivia, despite her exhaustion and pain, remained focused and determined. With a final tremendous effort, she pushed their child into the world, and the sound of a baby's cry filled the room. "It is a boy," Mrs. Carson announced, holding up the squalling infant. "A healthy, strong boy." Nathan felt tears stream down his face as he watched the midwife clean and wrap their son. When she placed the baby in Olivia's arms, he leaned over them both, overcome with emotion. The baby had a shock of dark hair and was already calming at the sound of his mother's voice. "He is perfect," Olivia whispered, touching the tiny fingers with wonder. "Look at him, Nathan, we made him." "You did all the hard work," Nathan said, kissing her sweaty forehead. "You were amazing, so strong and brave. I am in awe of you." They decided to name him Noah, after Nathan's father, with the middle name of Trent to honor Olivia's family. Noah Trent Kerrigan, born October 3, 1883, weighing 7 pounds and announcing his presence to the world with healthy lungs and a strong will. The first weeks of parenthood were exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. Noah was a good baby, but he still woke multiple times during the night to nurse, and there were endless diapers to change and clothes to wash. Nathan helped as much as he could, taking Noah for walks around the house to give Olivia breaks, learning to change diapers and swaddle the baby. The ranch hands took turns visiting, each of them awkwardly holding the infant and offering congratulations. As the weeks turned into months, Olivia and Nathan found their rhythm as parents. They marveled at every milestone: Noah's first smile, his attempts to roll over, the way he recognized their voices. The house that had once been quiet was now filled with the sounds of a baby, and both of them loved it. Winter came again, Noah's first, and the family settled into a cozy domesticity. Christmas was magical with a baby, and Nathan carved wooden toys while Olivia sewed tiny clothes. They took turns holding Noah by the fire, telling him stories about the ranch and the wider world he would grow up to explore. As 1884 progressed, Noah grew from an infant into a bright, curious toddler. He learned to crawl, then walk, his first steps taking him straight into Nathan's waiting arms. He said his first words, "Mama" and "Dada," and showed an early fascination with the horses and cattle, much to Nathan's delight. Olivia found that motherhood suited her. She loved watching Noah discover the world, loved the feel of his small hand in hers, the sound of his laughter. She and Nathan worked together to raise him, presenting a united front and sharing the joys and challenges equally. The ranch continued to prosper, allowing Nathan to make improvements and expand his herd. He hired additional help as needed, secure in the knowledge that his family was provided for. Olivia managed the household with the same competence she brought to everything, and their home became known throughout the county as a place of warmth and hospitality. When Noah was 2, Olivia discovered she was pregnant again. This time, she recognized the signs immediately and told Nathan right away. He was overjoyed, though also concerned about her going through another difficult labor. But this pregnancy was easier than the first, and when Olivia delivered a healthy baby girl in the spring of 1886, the labor was shorter and less traumatic. They named their daughter Nora Margaret Kerrigan, and she was the image of her mother, with dark eyes and a stubborn chin. Noah was fascinated by his baby sister, wanting to help with everything from diaper changes to feeding, and Nathan watched his family grow with a heart so full it felt like it might burst. Life settled into a pattern of busy contentment. The children grew, The ranch flourished, and Nathan and Olivia's love deepened with each passing year. They had their challenges, seasons of drought, illness that swept through the county, the normal struggles of raising children, but they faced everything together, their partnership unshakable. In the summer of 1888, when Noah was nearly 5 and Nora was 2, the family took a trip to St. Louis, so Olivia could show her children the city where she had grown up. They visited the boarding house where she had learned to cook, though it was under new management now, and she told them stories about their grandmother. Nathan watched his wife share her history with their children and fell in love with her all over again, marveling at the journey that had brought them from that desperate day in the saloon to this moment of complete happiness. As they sat on the train heading back to Kansas, Noah asleep against Nathan's shoulder and Nora drowsing in Olivia's lap, Nathan took his wife's free hand. "You remember what I said that day in the saloon?" he asked quietly. "That you would eat at my table as my equal." Olivia smiled, her eyes soft with memory. "Of course I remember. It was the moment my life changed." "Mine too," Nathan said. "But I got it wrong. You were never just my equal, Olivia. You were always so much more. You were my salvation, my joy, my better half. You took a lonely man and gave him a family, a home, a reason to wake up grateful every single day." "You saved me too," Olivia said, squeezing his hand. "You saw me when I was invisible. You valued me when the world said I had no worth. You loved me when I could not love myself." "We saved each other, Nathan." "Yes," he agreed. "We did." Years continued to pass, each one adding new chapters to the story of the Kerrigan family. Noah grew into a responsible young man who shared his father's love of ranching, while Nora developed her mother's sharp mind and independent spirit. In 1891, Olivia gave birth to twin boys, Nathaniel and Nicholas, who kept the entire household in joyful chaos with their endless energy and mischief. The ranch expanded as Noah grew old enough to take on more responsibility, and Nathan began to train him in every aspect of the operation. Olivia continued to manage the household and became known throughout the county for her charitable work, often providing meals for families struggling through hard times. She never forgot what it felt like to be hungry and desperate, and she used her position to help others whenever she could. In the late 1890s, as the new century approached, the Kerrigan family was firmly established as one of the most respected in the county. Nathan and Olivia had built something lasting, not just in terms of property and wealth, but in the love and values they had instilled in their children. On a warm evening in September 1899, Nathan and Olivia sat on the porch of their home, watching the sun set over the prairie. It was a rare moment of quiet, with all 4 children occupied elsewhere. Nathan reached for Olivia's hand, a gesture that had become as natural as breathing over their 17 years of marriage. "Did you ever imagine this?" Olivia asked, gesturing to the ranch, the house, the life they had built. "When you first saw me in that saloon, did you have any idea where it would lead?" Nathan considered the question seriously. "I knew you were special from the moment I saw you. There was something in your eyes, a strength and dignity that the world had tried to beat out of you but had not succeeded. I knew I wanted you in my life, but did I imagine all of this?" He shook his head slowly. "I could not have imagined anything this good. You exceeded every hope, every dream. You still do, every single day." Olivia leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him, the security that had never wavered. "I love you, Nathan Kerrigan. I have loved you almost from the beginning, and I will love you until the end. And I love you, Olivia Kerrigan. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. The very best." They sat together as the stars began to emerge, 2 people who had found each other against impossible odds and built a life of meaning and beauty. The house behind them was filled with the sounds of their children, the legacy they would leave to the world. The ranch stretched out around them, prosperous and thriving, a testament to hard work and careful stewardship. But more than any physical achievement, what Nathan and Olivia had created was a love story for the ages. It was a story that began with desperation and kindness, with a woman who offered to work for food and a man who said she would eat at his table as his equal. It was a story of two people seeing past society's judgments to find the truth of each other, of respect growing into friendship, growing into a love that transformed both of their lives. As the 20th century dawned, the Kerrigan family faced it together, secure in the foundation Nathan and Olivia had built. Noah would eventually take over the ranch, running it with the same integrity his father had shown. Nora would become a teacher, using her education to help children throughout the county. The twins would find their own paths, one becoming a veterinarian and the other a lawyer, both carrying forward the values of fairness and compassion their parents had modeled. Nathan and Olivia lived to see their grandchildren born, to hold babies who carried their legacy into yet another generation. They grew old together, their hair turning gray, their bodies slowing, but their love never dimming. On quiet evenings, they would still sit on that porch, holding hands and watching the sunset, grateful for every moment they had been given. When Nathan passed away peacefully in his sleep in 1918 at the age of 68, Olivia grieved deeply, but also found comfort in the life they had shared. She lived another 5 years, surrounded by children and grandchildren who adored her, secure in the knowledge that she had been deeply loved and had loved deeply in return. The story that began on a dusty street in Concordia, Kansas, with a desperate woman and a compassionate cowboy, became a family legend passed down through generations. It was a reminder that kindness matters, that seeing the humanity in others can change lives, and that real love transcends all the superficial judgments the world tries to impose. In the end, Nathan and Olivia's story was not about overcoming obstacles or defying expectations, though they did both. It was about two people who recognized something essential in each other, who chose to build a life based on equality and respect, and who discovered that such a foundation could support a love vast enough to encompass everything. It was about a woman who had been told she was worthless finding her worth, and a man who had thought he was complete discovering he had only been half alive until he found his other half. Their legacy lived on in the ranch that still bore the Kerrigan name, in the descendants who carried their values forward, and in the simple truth they had proven through their lives together. That truth was this: love is not about appearance or status or meeting society's arbitrary standards. Love is about seeing another person fully and completely, recognizing their inherent worth, and choosing them every single day. It is about partnership and equality, respect and passion, laughter and tears shared equally. Nathan Kerrigan had offered Olivia Trent a seat at his table as his equal, but what he had really offered was a chance for both of them to become more than they could have been alone. And Olivia, in accepting that offer, had not just gained a meal or a job or even a husband. She had gained a true partner, a love that honored every part of who she was, and a life rich with meaning and connection. In the end, that was all anyone could ask for and more than most people ever found. But Nathan and Olivia had found it, built it, and lived it fully. And that made their story, begun on a desperate day in 1882, and spanning nearly 4 decades of shared life, a story worth telling, worth remembering, worth celebrating as an example of what becomes possible when people choose compassion over judgment and love over fear.